to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, to ordain and establish this Constitution.
CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal mid-Rosh and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
The Obama administration is turning its back on Israel at the United Nations. Thousands of new IRS agents have been hired to enforce Obamacare. If you're an American taxpayer, you have a right to know about your most recent defense purchases. Research shows that more than 1 in 4 adolescents has sent a nude picture of themselves over the Internet, better known as sexting, and 15 reasons why the Obamacare decision is a mind-blowing disaster for America. My name is Howard Riell, and this is Real Truth. You're listening to the American Freedom Network, streaming live around the world at AmericanNewsNet.com, and on Facebook, and on YouTube, and on RealTV.com, and in the book Real Truth, Stay Angry. As well, of course, broadcasting out across the Colorado Front Range in KHNC, Johnstown, Colorado, 1360 AM The Lion. Our call-in number, as always, 877-254-7524. Item from the End of the American Dream. Quote, you can almost always count on the Supreme Court to do the wrong thing. In fact, just about every major decision by the U.S. Supreme Court over the last 40 years has been bad for America. Many were hoping that the Supreme Court would strike down Obamacare, but the truth is that we all should have known better than to expect them to get something right. So now America's headed for a complete and total disaster as Obamacare is fully implemented over the next several years. Obamacare is going to absolutely shred the infrastructure of our medical system. It's going to send health insurance premiums soaring. It's going to dramatically expand the size and scope of government. It's going to fundamentally alter the relationships between doctors and their patients, and it's one of the largest tax increases in U.S. history. Not only that, it's also going to add about $1 trillion to our national debt over the next decade. So no, the Obamacare decision is not good news. Obamacare was one of the worst pieces of legislation in American history, and now we are stuck with it. It was a 5-4 decision to uphold Obamacare, and the swing vote was Chief Justice John Roberts, who was appointed by George W. Bush. After the vote today, it's hard to have any faith in the U.S. Supreme Court. Many constitutional conservatives kept voting for Republicans in the hope that the direction of the Supreme Court would change, but it hasn't. Prior to the Obama administration, Republicans controlled the White House for 20 out of 28 years. If Republicans were going to fundamentally change the nature of the Supreme Court, that was the opportunity, but it didn't happen. Instead, what we have is a Supreme Court that's dominated by judges that have very little respect for the U.S. Constitution. When I was in law school, I got to study the Supreme Court pretty closely. And I quickly realized most of the time they simply do whatever they want to do, and they make up whatever reasons they can to justify their decisions. That sounds really bad, but that is the truth. And thanks to the Supreme Court, we're stuck with Obamacare, at least for now. The following are 15 reasons why the Obamacare decision is a mind-blowing disaster for America. 1, according to the U.S. Supreme Court, the federal government has the power to force you to buy private goods and services. Now that this door has been opened, what else will we be forced to buy in the future? 2, Obamacare is another step away from individual liberty and another step towards a nanny state where the government dominates our lives from the cradle to the grave. 3, the IRS is now going to be given the task of hunting down and penalizing millions of Americans who do not have any health insurance. In fact, the Obama administration has given the IRS $500 million extra dollars, quote, outside the normal appropriations process, unquote, to help them enforce the provisions of Obamacare that they're in charge of overseeing. 4, Obamacare imposes more than 20 new taxes on the American people. You can find a comprehensive list of Obamacare taxes right here, my friends. You'll find the link on my Facebook page. If you love paying higher taxes, then you're going to absolutely love Obamacare once it's fully implemented. 5, in an attempt to control costs and promote efficiency, Obamacare limits the treatment options that doctors and patients can consider. This is likely to result in a decrease in life expectancy in the United States. 6, Obamacare is going to impose nightmarish paperwork burdens on doctors, hospitals, and the rest of the healthcare system. This is going to significantly increase our healthcare costs as a nation. 7, Obamacare is going to send health insurance premiums soaring. This is especially true for younger Americans. 8, many small businesses are going to be absolutely crushed by the provisions in Obamacare that require them to provide expensive health insurance coverage for their employees. This is going to make them even less competitive with companies in other countries where businesses are not required to provide health care for their workers. This is also going to make it even less attractive for businesses to hire new employees. 9, Obamacare is going to make the emerging doctor shortage in America a lot worse. Surveys have found that we could potentially see hundreds of thousands of doctors leave the medical profession because of Obamacare. 10, Obamacare has already forced the cancellation of dozens of doctor-owned hospitals. 11, Obamacare is going to result in a much bigger federal government. In order to fully implement all the provisions of Obamacare, hordes of new government bureaucrats will be required. 12, thanks to Obamacare, you're going to have to wait much longer to see a doctor. Just look at what happened once Romneycare was implemented in Massachusetts. In fact, we've already seen the start of this process in Massachusetts, where Mitt Romney's health care reforms were nearly identical to President Obama's. Romney's reforms increased the demand for health care but did nothing to expand the supply of physicians. In fact, by cracking down on insurance premiums, Massachusetts pushed insurers to reduce their payments to providers, making it less worthwhile for doctors to expand their practices. 13, Obamacare contains all kinds of insidious little provisions that most people don't even know about. 14, as if the U.S. government was not facing enough of a crisis with entitlement spending, it's now being projected that Obamacare will add 16 million more Americans to the Medicaid rolls. You and I will be paying for all of this. Number 15, the Congressional Budget Office estimates that Obamacare will add more than $1 trillion to government spending over the next decade. Considering the fact that the U.S. government is already drowning in debt, how in the world can we afford this? Unquote. My friends, we cannot afford this, and we've been stuck with it. If Romney is elected, will he disband Obamacare? Well, maybe. Maybe not. Don't forget, Romneycare bears a striking resemblance to Obamacare. It appears to me that we are leaping further down the road to an ugly future here in America, most of all because you and I simply have had better things to do than stay on top and watch our politicians. Those days are done. Those days are done. We'll be back.
The Lord brings the counsel of the nations to nothing. He makes the plans of the peoples of no effect. The counsel of the Lord stands forever, the plans of his heart to all generations. Blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord, the people he has chosen as his own inheritance. Psalm 33, verses 10 through 12.
No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque or reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. Article 1, Section 10.
Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescent to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188. Whether you're in automotive, sporting goods, hardware, health, wellness, electrical, electronics, construction, carpet cleaning, legal, or animal care, and offer exceptional customer service and provide quality services or goods, you're honest, reliable, and professional. If you have a business, we have the customers. Let us put you in touch with our loyal, supportive, and dedicated listeners today. They're waiting to hear from you. It's inexpensive. It's effective. Call KHNC at 1-800-205-6245.
Folks, welcome back to Real Truth. Political strategist Dick Morris is looking at the Obamacare decision in the Supreme Court, and he's finding a ray of hope in it. Well, he's a better man than I, because I don't see a hell of a lot of hope. But let's listen to what Dick Morris has to say. He says that Obama's victory will defeat him. Let's listen.
Obama won the battle, but he'll lose the war. That's what we'll talk about in today's video. Sorry it's a little bit late, but we had to get the decision in the Supreme Court so that I could comment on it. Obama probably is celebrating in the White House now because the individual mandate has been upheld by the Roberts Court. But fundamentally, this is a political disaster for Obama because while he'll get a short-term positive bounce because he got a good ruling, it means that health care is the dominant issue of the election of 2012. Just like it was the dominant issue of the election of 2010. And we already know how that election comes out, an overwhelming defeat for Obama and for the Democrats. The court has now thrown out the mandate, but that gives us a mandate, which is the only way we can defeat this horrible law is to defeat Obama, retake the Senate, and enlarge our margin in the House. And that's the mandate, the message that we have to take from this ruling, and most Americans will take. Look, for 3 years now, Obamacare in every single public opinion survey has gotten clobbered. The usual margin is 40% for, 55% against. Now Romney is somewhere around 45, 46, 47, and Obama's 43, 44, 45, 46. But it's not 55, 40. But health care is 55, 40 in favor of the Romney Republican point of view. So the more this becomes the dominant issue of the election, the more the vote is going to hew to those contours, 55 to 40, an overwhelming defeat for Obama. And let's remember who this law really guts. Two key groups. Old people who will face rationing under the law, which is a polite term for euthanasia, and they're going to turn out in droves about this. This is a horrific decision for Nelson, who's trying to hang on to a Senate seat in Florida. Old people are going to vote like crazy on it. But secondly, the young and the poor, the very people who are Obama's political base, because this is essentially a tax increase on the young and the poor. It says that they have to buy insurance that they now don't have and spend 7 or 8% of their income before they get any hope of federal subsidy. And if they don't do that, they have to face a fine of $2,000 or $3,000 for not buying the insurance. So they're killed either way. And with the Medicaid extension being thrown out by the court, the government won't be there to help them. That's why Obama postponed the effective date of the individual mandate until 2014, so that he can get safely reelected before that happens. But believe me, the Republicans and Obama and all of us have got to bring to the young people and to the poor people the message of how this affects them, what this does to them. Now, already Americans throughout the country are feeling the impact of Obamacare. My wife and I just felt it earlier this week when we got a notice, polite little notice from a health insurance company, a 30% increase in our premiums in 1 year. And that's happening to households throughout the United States. And employers are telling employees, I'm going to have to cancel our coverage because it's cheaper to pay the fine than to meet the mandates that are required in the coverage, every last illness. And all of this stuff is going to absolutely be coming public, front and center between now and the election. So Romney had a good basic issue to run on, the economy. And Obama's doing badly on it, and everybody sees that, and it's going to get worse. But now he has an issue. Now he has an absolute issue teed up for him, which is should the individual mandate be repealed or not. And Romney will take that ball and run with it, and I think Obama will rue the day that he won. Thanks a lot for watching.
Well, it's about time Obama started ruining some days. He's been getting too many victories undeserved, if you ask me, and I guess by listening to the show, you did ask me. Item from the End of the American Dream blog. It's being reported that after oral arguments were finished back in March, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts was planning to join with the other conservative justices in ruling that the individual mandate in Obamacare was unconstitutional. But something changed. According to Jan Crawford of CBS News, two sources with specific knowledge of the deliberations at the Supreme Court told her that at some point Roberts switched his position and decided to uphold Obamacare. Roberts decided to characterize the penalty for not complying with the individual mandate as a tax. This argument had been rejected by the lower courts, and supporters of Obamacare had considered that argument to be essentially a legal Hail Mary with almost no chance of success. But this is how the legal system in America works. Judges decide what they want the result of a case to be. Then they try and figure out a way to justify it under the Constitution and under existing law. Often judges will go through all sorts of mental gymnastics to get to the results that they want. Most Americans would be absolutely shocked if they truly realized what goes on behind closed doors in our legal system. Chief Justice John Roberts did not wake up one day and suddenly realize that Obamacare was constitutional. Rather, he bowed to political pressure and then attempted to find some possible way to legally justify his new position. Normally, Supreme Court deliberations are very secret, but in this case, details of what happened have been leaked to the press. The following is what reporter Jan Crawford recently told Face the Nation. Quote, I am told by two sources with specific knowledge of the court's deliberations that Roberts initially sided with the conservatives in this case and was prepared to strike down the individual mandate, unquote. So exactly why did he change his mind? Well, according to CBS News, it had a lot more to do with politics and the media than it did with legal issues. Quote, but Roberts pays attention to media coverage. As Chief Justice, he's keenly aware of his leadership role on the court, and he's also sensitive to how the court is perceived by the public. There were countless news articles in May warning of damage to the court and to Roberts' reputation if the court were to strike down the mandate. Leading politicians, including the president himself, had expressed confidence the mandate would be upheld. Some even suggested that if Roberts struck down the mandate, it would prove he'd been deceitful during his confirmation hearings, when he explained the philosophy of judicial restraint. It was around this time that it also became clear to the conservative justices that Roberts was, as one put it, quote, wobbly, the sources said. When determining the outcome of a case, Supreme Court justices should be using the U.S. Constitution as their guide. But instead, these days, they let all kinds of other things influence their decisions. There are also hints that John Roberts changed his vote in the way that the dissenting opinion is drafted, unquote. My friends, the bottom line is this. The fundamentals of our republic, the bedrock of our nation, can no longer be trusted. The ground under our feet is now shifting. It's moving. We don't have solid ground to stand on, not legislatively, not judicially. They're very, very uncertain times that we're living in, and it's only getting worse. Item from Infowars.com, Kurt Nimmo. Representative Kevin Brady, a Texas Republican, warns that the IRS will hire up to 16,000 new enforcers in the coming months to go after citizens who do not pay the new Obamacare tax. The expansion is said to include criminal investigators who make cases in order to levy penalties on scofflaws. Brady cites a recent analysis by the Joint Economic Committee and staff at the House Ways and Means Committee. The report says the IRS will need a fresh crop of agents to examine and audit tax information mandated by Obama's misnamed Affordable Care Act. In January of 2011, Representative Michelle Bachmann claimed the IRS planned to hire 16,500 IRS agents to police Obamacare compliance. CNN reported at the time that the number cited by the Minnesota Congresswoman originated in a GOP committee report, based on a preliminary estimate from the Congressional Budget Office. When most people think of health care reform, they think of more doctor exams, not more IRS exams, Brady said. Isn't the federal government already intruding enough into our lives? We need thousands of new doctors and nurses in America, not thousands more IRS agents, unquote. Jim Corey writes that nearly 24 new tax increases will be levied under Obamacare, many of them hidden from the American people. Corey also notes that compliance will add to the legendary annual headache Americans suffer every April 15th. In addition to more complicated tax returns, families and small businesses will be forced to reveal further tax information to the IRS, to provide proof of government-approved health care and submit detailed sales information to comply with new excise taxes, Corey writes, unquote. My friends, you got aspirin? Good, because you're going to have headaches like you wouldn't believe. Item from the Algeminer.com. Today at the United Nations, the Obama administration is turning its back on Israel. For the very first time, the UN Security Council has invited the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights to, quote-unquote, brief the Council specifically on the subject of Israel and the Commissioner's list of trumped-up sins. Though the U.S. is a veto-holding power, the extraordinary move has full American approval, despite the fact that the global soapbox will be handed to Navi Pillay, a notorious anti-Israel partisan. Moreover, the American-backed action exposes President Obama's profound weakness on the international stage. It turns out that the deal to sponsor an Israel-bashing session at the highest levels was a trade-off for having the High Commissioner brief the Council on the subject of Syria. The Security Council has not acted on Syria since an April 21, 2012 resolution, which sent unarmed observers over to watch the bloodshed. France wanted a High Commissioner briefing on Syria to generate more noise. Council member Pakistan said no unless Israel was on the chopping block too. The Russians also said no unless Libya was on the table. Russia seeks to use the mess in that country to obstruct stronger measures on Syria. At this point in the diplomatic game, the Obama administration could have insisted that Israel not be sacrificed as the quid pro quo for paying due attention to the Syrian carnage. Instead, they caved, agreeing to a spectacle that cast Syria and Israel as moral equals, unquote. My friend, Syria is a toilet with power-hungry bastards running it who want to maim, destroy, and conquer. Israel sits in the middle of a nest of vipers just trying to survive. Item from the Business Insider. June may have ended with devastating storms to the D.C. area, but not even expansive power outages could stop the Pentagon from spending billions on acquisition and procurement last week. As told last week, the Justice of the Department of Defense signed $4 billion worth of contracts. Last week, the Department of Defense spent money on food service for Guantanamo, uniforms for the Marine Corps, and $250 million on space vehicles for the Air Force that have very few publicly available details. But we did our best to find the most compelling contracts of the 56 concluded in the past week of June and to see where the money went. America, enjoy your purchases. U.S. Air Force, $1.8 billion for Saudi Arabian F-15 upgrades. Boeing was awarded a $1.86 billion contract to provide a suite of upgrades to Saudi Arabian F-15 jets. Fort Leavenworth, $500 million for anti-IED devices. That's improvised explosive devices. U.S. Embassy, New Delhi, $44 million to keep Marine One in the air. $38 million for solar energy. My friends, the numbers go on. $36 million for Minuteman missile wafers. Boeing was awarded $36 million to procure 12 modified wafers for the Minuteman III missile system. These devices must be secure against radio assault, which could enable a target to remotely detonate the missile prematurely as a countermeasure. What does this mean? In essence, the military remains committed to keeping the ICBM stockpiles up to date and ready to go, unquote. It also means that the government seems committed to taking our money in record amounts. Item from medicalnewstoday.com. According to a study on 948 Texas teens published in the Archives of Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine, more than 1 in 4 adolescents have sent a nude picture of themselves through electronic means. The authors found that, quote-unquote, sexting, the practice of electronically sending sexually explicit images or messages from one person to another, may be associated with sexual behavior. My friends, I'm going to touch on this when we come back because it bears talking about. It's a disgrace, and it's our fault. Real Truth will be right back.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Tom Phillips, founder of the Green Herb.
The people who are controlling the government of America are the same people who are trying to control your family's health care. You can sit quietly by and accept their plan, or you can take responsibility for your health. What would happen if you could no longer obtain the medications you're now taking? Would you be forced to join the ranks of corrupt agents just to purchase the medicine? If you're one of the thousands of concerned citizens who would like to know more about a natural way, God's way to health, drop by the Green Herb for a natural solution and all the information you need to make an intelligent decision. Or go to our website, www.thegreenherb.com. Come by the Green Herb, located in Wheat Ridge, Colorado, on the I-70 Frontage Road North, 1 mile west of Kipling, or call 888-765-HERB. That's 888-765-4372. And be sure to listen to the Green Herb Show with Linda and Dr. Cass every Tuesday at 1 o'clock on KHNC.
Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone into the world. By this you will know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is of God, and every spirit that does not confess that Yeshua, Jesus, has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of Antichrist, which you have already heard was coming and is now already in the world. 1 John 4:1.
Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant shall be issued but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine. Point and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. The Beth Messiah Congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah Congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath.
My friends, the Supreme Court, the Congress, the President, they're not the only ones trying to destroy America. Don't forget our good buddies, the Muslim extremists. Here's Ann Coulter reminding us about them.
The New York Times, Thomas Friedman, in a commonplace formulation, sniffs that racial profiling isn't civilized, and he blames 20 years of attacks on American interests by Muslim extremists on, I quote, religious fundamentalists of any stripe. I don't know, the Amish have been rather quiet recently. My logic is this. In 20 years of relentless attacks on American airlines by Muslim extremists, and every one of the attacks, one or more Muslim extremists was involved. This ought to help airlines and law enforcement engage in more accurate risk assessment. On September 11th, 2001, 3,000 Americans were slaughtered in a terrorist attack on our own soil. In October 2000, our warship, the USS Cole, was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1998, our embassies in Kenya and Tanzania were attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1996, a U.S. housing complex in Saudi Arabia was attacked by Muslim extremists. In 1995, 5 Americans were killed in a car bomb set by Muslim extremists. In 1993, of course, the World Trade Center was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1988, a passenger jet, Pan Am Flight 103, was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1986, the West Berlin discotheque frequented by U.S. servicemen was bombed by Muslim extremists. In 1985, an Italian cruise ship, the Achille Laura, was seized. An 69-year-old American, shot and thrown overboard by Muslim extremists. In 1983, the U.S. Marine barracks in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. In 1982, the U.S. Embassy in Beirut was blown up by Muslim extremists. And starting it all in 1979, the U.S. Embassy in Tehran was seized and Americans held hostage for 444 days by Muslim extremists. Meanwhile, 100% of the terrorist attacks on U.S. airlines for 20 years have been committed by Muslims. When there is a 100% chance, it ceases to be a profile. It's called a description of the suspect.
And it's just that simple, my friends. It's just that simple. Now, let's go back to the item I started on before because I want to get into this. From medicalnewstoday.com, I'll repeat. According to a study on 948 Texas teens published in the Archives of Pediatrics and Adolescent Medicine, more than 1 in 4 adolescents have sent a nude picture of themselves through electronic means. The authors found that, quote-unquote, sexting, the practice of electronically sending sexually explicit images or messages from one person to another, may be associated with sexual behavior. The researchers suggest that parents, schools, pediatricians, and policymakers do not have enough information regarding the nature and importance of teen sexting as there is insufficient empirical data. Unquote, stop. My friends, how often do you look at your teens' cell phones? How often do you go through the logs to see who they've been talking to and what they've been sending? What's that you say? You don't do that? Because if you did it, your teen would get furious? What is your teen getting now? If he or she is one of the 1 in 4 sending naked pictures of themselves to friends, maybe even to strangers. My friends, you hear me yammer on continually about how society is circling the bowl. Well, you won't find any more of a circle than this. What on earth have we done in this country to turn our kids, our teenagers, into sex objects who want to send naked pictures of themselves to others? What does it say about us as a society that this is happening? Don't forget, kids reflect the society in which they live. They reflect their families. And now look at what they're doing. We are a society obsessed with sex. If you're an adult, Maybe you can handle that kind of an obsession, and maybe you can't. If you're a kid, you have no chance. You will be steamrolled by things that you are emotionally ill-equipped to deal with successfully. We have to, as parents, protect our kids from growing up too fast, getting the wrong influences. And if that's too much trouble for you, my friends, then I pity you. And even more than that, I pity your children. Get the hell involved in their lives. Know what they're doing. Know that they're seeing all kinds of lousy images. Know that you've got to talk to them about these topics. Uncomfortable? Yeah. So what? A lot of things are uncomfortable. It is a disgrace, not only on an individual basis, but on a national basis, for statistics like this to come to light. Item from CNS News. A record 8,733,461 workers took federal disability insurance payments in June 2012, according to the Social Security Administration. That's up from 8,707,185 in May. It also exceeds the entire population of New York City. Let me roll that back for you. 8.7 million workers took federal disability insurance payments in June 2012. That's more than the number of people who live in New York City. There's been a dramatic shrinkage in the United States over the past 20 years in the number of workers actually employed and earning paychecks per worker who is not employed and is taking federal disability insurance payments, unquote. So we are preferring not to work, to sit around, to entertain ourselves, to be unproductive. Talk to me about America, my friends. Cheer me up about America. Item from the Ulsterman Report. The Obamacare ruling is good news for us, real good news. It's 2010 all over again. Swing states will shift over to Romney in most cases. Trust me on this. We've done the polling. The data is conclusive on this. It's a huge tax. We got Obama lying again. The Tea Party, which was as real and powerful a political movement as I've ever seen in my lifetime, is back in play. That scares the hell out of the Obama White House. You just got a bunch of Dems sweating hard over their reelection. The Republican Party will now be a lot more focused and clearly conservative, and that's exactly what they need to be this time around. We must make election year a clear divide between one side and the other, and this Obamacare ruling has forced that to happen. And the initial reports I'm getting are telling me there was a lot more clever going on inside that decision than the initial reaction will indicate. It's the Obama tax now, and states were given an out. The entire law is a big-ass convoluted mess, and the ruling has reinforced that fact. Obama will have to defend something he doesn't understand, and Romney can now sit back and just repeat over and over again, repeal, 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 unquote. My friends, he can repeat the word repeal. The question is this: will he do it? We're going to find out.
The Beth Messiah congregation invites you to come and experience a Messianic Roots biblically based congregational fellowship as we observe God's Shabbat in Messiah Yeshua. Praise and worship services begin at 10:30 a.m., followed by an Oneg Shabbat meal, mid-Rosh, and fellowship. Beth Messiah congregation is located at 8333 Acoma Way in North Denver. You can find out more information by calling 1-800-205-6245. Everyone's welcome, so join us this Shabbat. And Shabbat Shalom, good Sabbath. If catastrophe struck, would your family be prepared? Are you confident you wouldn't react in a panic? Is there one place to get all of your emergency supplies? Ferris Survival encourages you to have confidence through preparation, not panic through crisis. Ferris Survival, located at 3366 South Broadway, is a professional, reputable, full-service business providing quality, realistic preparedness supplies at an affordable price. Go online, stop by, or call 303-781-0343. Ferris Survival.
If you're spending hard-earned money on supplements, you need to know about BioSuperfood because you're probably shortchanging yourself on nutrition and value. If you're buying products claiming to provide DNA protection from radiation, you're getting ripped off by inferior copycat products because there's no other product developed or researched like BioSuperfood. BioSuperfood is one complete superfood product that addresses radiation poisoning, allergies, arthritis, diabetes, high blood pressure, and other degenerative diseases. BioSuperfood helps digestion, decreases pain and inflammation, increases flexibility, improves heart health and brain function. It boosts your immune system and even inhibits the AIDS virus in cancerous cells. It's an antibacterial, antifungal, and anti-inflammatory. BioSuperfood is not another supplement. It's a whole food and contains over 5,000 nutrients. Call now and ask about your special discounts on your BioSuperfood purchase at 303-257-7576. That's 303-257-7576 or biosuperfood@hotmail.com.
We are back. My friends, I'm not a DJ, I'm not playing music, but I do take requests, and this is one of the most requested videos I've ever played on this show. Andrew Klavan's one-state solution, give the Middle East to the Jews.
This is Andrew Klavan on The Culture. In an effort to bring peace to the Middle East, President Barack Obama has proposed that Israel should return to its 1967 borders in exchange for being annihilated by its enemies. This would be an extension of the brilliant 2005 trade-off in which Israel gave up control of the Gaza Strip in return for being relentlessly attacked by rocket fire, while Palestinians voted to give leadership in the territory to Hamas, a terrorist organization bent on Jewish genocide. But enticing as this offer may be, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has subtly indicated his displeasure with the president's idea by flying to Washington and carefully explaining to Obama the meaning of the ancient biblical phrase, Kishmir Yiddishatukas. This creates a major obstacle in achieving the so-called two-state solution, a proposal that would bring about lasting peace by dividing the area fairly between the Israelis and those who have sworn to exterminate them if it's the last thing they ever do. That's why today, we here at Klavan on the Culture would like to lay out what we consider the only plan likely to bring tranquility, freedom, and justice to the region. The one-state solution in which the entire Middle East is given to the Jews. That's right. The one-state solution is a proposal of genius that would not only help the Palestinians, but would instantly achieve the noblest goals of the so-called Arab Spring. For instance, turning the entire Middle East into one big Israel will secure religious freedom for everyone in the area. As things stand, Muslim states either ban other religions completely or torment their practitioners to the point of extinction. Not so Israel. Although Jimmy Carter and other leftists pretending not to be anti-Semites have accused Israel of practicing religious apartheid, the fact is Muslims and Christians have full freedom of religion in the Jewish state. They can and do vote and serve in the Israeli parliament and Supreme Court. They can and do volunteer to serve in the Israeli Defense Forces. And only under the Jews are the religious sites of the Holy Land open to all. Indeed, once the entire Middle East becomes Israel, most of the region's Arabs will be freer and better off in every way than they've ever been before. The United Nations reports that Israel is far more democratic and more advanced in human development than any Arab state. And of course, only in Israel is that half of the population sometimes known as women, or sweetheart, or baby, given full human rights. Handing control of the Middle East over to the Jews is such a terrific idea. In fact, many of you may be thinking, hey, maybe the Jews should run America too. Of course, some anti-Semites believe the Jews already run America, but that's ridiculous. If the Jews ran America, we wouldn't be $14 trillion in debt. Knuckleheads. For more information on Israel, try searching the subject on Front Page Magazine at frontpagemag.com. This is Andrew Klavan on The Culture.
I thank you very much, Andrew. What happens if the world gives the entire Middle East to the Jews? Well, I think so. That'd probably be a good thing. I volunteer to run it. Item from WorldTruth.tv. A report by Jeremy Scahill in The Nation revealed that the largest mercenary army in the world, Blackwater, now called Z Services, that's XE, clandestine intelligence services, was sold to the multinational Monsanto. Blackwater was renamed in 2009 after becoming famous in the world with numerous reports of abuses in Iraq, including massacres of civilians. It remains the largest private contractor of the U.S. Department of State Security Services that practices state terrorism by giving the government the opportunity to deny it. Many military and former CIA officers work for Blackwater or related companies, created to divert attention from their bad reputation and make more profit selling their nefarious services, ranging from information and intelligence to infiltration, political lobbying, and paramilitary training for other governments, banks, and multinational corporations. Item from the Economic Collapse blog. Sometimes we all get a little reminder of just how completely and totally dependent we are on the power grid. Massive thunderstorms that ripped through Ohio, West Virginia, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and Virginia left millions without power over the weekend. At this point, it's being projected that some people may not get power back until the end of the week. The Super Derecho storm that pounded the Washington, D.C. area on Friday night with hurricane-force winds is being called unprecedented. But the truth is that there are other events that could happen that would be far more damaging to our power grid. For example, a substantial EMP burst over a major U.S. city would fry virtually all of the electronics in the city and take the power grid in the area down indefinitely. A gigantic EMP burst over the entire country, caused by a massive solar storm or a very large nuclear explosion in the atmosphere, could theoretically take down the entire national power grid. Just try to imagine a world where nobody has any electricity, nobody can pump gas, nobody can use credit cards or get any more money, where most vehicles won't start, where nobody has the internet, where all cell phones are dead, and where nobody can heat or cool their homes. That's how serious an EMP burst could potentially be. We're talking about an event that could be millions of times worse than 9/11. Hopefully this latest storm has reminded Americans about how vulnerable our power grid really is and about how close we really are to being knocked back to the late 1800s. Let's review some of the damage that this Super Derecho storm caused the D.C. area. Thousands of businesses have been forced to close temporarily because they cannot operate without electricity. Many federal agencies were closed on Monday because there was no power. Many 911 call centers throughout Northern Virginia were down over the weekend and could not respond to emergencies. Without electricity, many families have not been able to cook warm meals. Without warm water, many families have not been able to take hot showers. A boil water advisory was put into effect for several areas of Northern Virginia. Many families that still do not have power are in danger of losing much of the food in their refrigerators and freezers. Many gas stations were not able to operate because of a lack of electricity, and so this has made filling up the tank a major hassle for many families. Hundreds of traffic lights are still out, and this is making commuting a major problem in some areas. Without air conditioning, many families will absolutely swelter as high temperatures remain well above 90 degrees. My friends, here's the bottom line. We are vulnerable in ways we don't even know. We'll be back.
And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and say to them, The feasts of the Lord, which you shall proclaim to be holy convocations, these are my feasts. 6 days shall work be done, but the seventh day is a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation. You shall do no work on it. It is the Sabbath of the Lord in all your dwellings. Leviticus chapter 23, verse 1 through 3. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. CINN Stations in Alt salutes our troops. Whether you're for the war or against it, they're still there. These men and women deserve more than our support. They deserve the comfort of home. Send a military care package today. Just type military care package into a search engine, point, and click. Let's show our troops we care. This message from CINN Stations in Alt, wishing Godspeed to our fighting men and women and thanking them for their triumphs and their sacrifices. Restore Health and Counseling salutes the men and women in uniform who've answered the call for our freedoms. Let's give them the hero's welcome they deserve as they have fought hard to restore peace. America's troops are our angels of protection, so stand up and salute them proudly. That's from Restore Health and Counseling at 4705 Paris Street, serving Northeast Denver with complete substance abuse counseling for adolescents to adult and for private as well as professional drug, alcohol screening and treatment and rehabilitation. Visit us at www.rhctherapy.com or call 303-373-1188.
Welcome back to Real Truth, my friends. Item from the Nevada Policy Research Center, written by Jeffrey Lawrence. The headline, "You Still Don't Have Health Care." I quote, President Obama calls his signature piece of legislation the Affordable Care Act. Ayn Rand would have given it the same name. That's because in typical Washington fashion, the law's name promises something entirely opposed to what it will produce. The law neither is affordable nor provides care. What it does is change the rules for buying and selling health insurance. What's more, these changes will only make the cost of health care rise even faster. The critical point is that possession of health insurance is not the same thing as access to care. Even before the law was passed, government programs like Medicaid promised insurance to poor families. As many Medicaid patients have discovered, however, finding a doctor who will treat them is much more difficult than just enrolling in the program. The reason? Medicaid systematically under-reimburses healthcare providers for their services, which, since doctors cannot recoup their costs, leads many doctors to refuse Medicaid patients. Recent surveys of medical professionals reveal that only 40% of doctors accept all new Medicaid patients. The converse is also true. Individuals can and do receive medical care even when they do not use insurance. Cash-only medical clinics like Patient First Medical Center in Las Vegas offer individuals the chance to purchase health care directly even if they don't pay monthly insurance premiums. In fact, clinics like Patient First offer high-quality care cheaper than it can be found elsewhere. Why? Because in cash-only practices, the market incentivizes providers to hold down costs. Individuals who spend their own money directly for health care must spend that money judiciously, weighing the likely quality of life improvements from the proposed treatments. Such scrutiny leads providers as well as producers of medical devices to concentrate on treatments or technologies that offer consumers the greatest bang for their health care buck. In short, a price system organizes the entire supply chain, efficiently allocating resources to provide the greatest value to patients. To be competitive, cash-only medical providers must exercise discipline. No buying additional MRI machines when dialysis machines are what's needed. Waste cannot be tolerated. In recent decades, however, most Americans have been lured out of the cash market and into the world of third-party payers. Third-party payer is indeed a better descriptor than insurance because very few insurance plans still perform that function. At one time, Americans understood that the purpose of insurance, whether it's health insurance, life insurance, or automotive insurance, is to hedge against the unforeseen. Now, however, it's become commonplace to use health insurance to pay for scheduled checkups and other completely foreseeable medical procedures. These costs are borne collectively. That means individuals have every incentive to seek as much care as possible regardless of cost because they won't have to foot the bill directly. Likewise, providers no longer subject to the market discipline imposed by consumers who finance their treatment directly have little incentive to control costs, unquote. My friends, the bottom line is this. Don't get sick. You can't afford it. You can't handle it. You're not used to what will happen. None of us is. I've said we're living in dangerous times. We are living in dangerous times. that trip to the doctor to take care of your cold or whatever, you're going to have to rethink it. You're going to have to rethink it because we are collectively as a society making some terrible, terrible decisions. And it's bringing the whole game down around our heads. My friends, we will not be on the air tomorrow. It's July 4th, and so let me close with this. Stay safe, stay healthy, and especially on July 4th, stay safe. Stay really safe. And keep your kids safe, too. I'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.